There we go. All right. First time ever doing this, so thank you.
Oh, really? This is the first one? I love
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Nice. So, hello. My name is Sabrina. I am known online as Pevchmilk. Um, I've been painting seriously my whole life, but I started painting really seriously in 2020 when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I got laid off, not laid off from my job, but I was a bartender, so I couldn't bartend anymore. And it was literally like, this is not the story you hear from everybody, but it was literally like the best thing that ever happened to me because I
Yeah.
literally just painting. I started painting like 10 or 12-hour days, and it was just so good. It was so wonderful. And I knew it was like, it felt really important. Like, it felt like this is the thing that I want to spend like a lot of
This
my
it
time
was
doing.
like your
The rest of my
singularity, like letting you know this is what you want to do. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, it was amazing. It was
yeah.
wonderful. I've been through a lot of iterations of my artwork, since that moment. I've done um, a ton of different types of artwork and different subject matters and things like that. But I feel now in this very moment in my like artistic life that I'm returning back to the stuff that I did in like my earliest art career in
Yeah.
2020, which is so beautiful. And it's like this big, just kind of like full circle moment. It's really been beautiful to watch. So,
That's the crazy part. I first saw your stuff in like 2021, and then I also kind of took like a hiatus from Instagram. And then when I started
yeah,
getting back into this, I went back to your page, and I've seen that you're sort of talking about how 2021 was like your, like one of your favorite eras of yourself, like your most
exactly.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It was so pure when I started doing it that it was literally just like this is who I am on canvas. I wasn't relying on it for money. I didn't give up. Can I cuss?
Absolutely.
Just making
Absolutely.
sure. I didn't give I did not give a fuck what anybody thought about what I was making.
Yeah.
And it felt so good. But as time went on, and I can only see this now in hindsight, as time went on, I was like, oh, I gotta make money. Like, what do people want to see? And my artwork just started to get like evolve in this direction of like thinking more about like what people wanted to see as opposed to what I wanted to paint. And it
Yeah.
just like gradually started to disintegrate. Um, and I got further and further away from like what I really wanted to make. Like you can look back on it and you'd still be like, oh my god, this shit is so weird. Like what? but
Oh, for sure.
but at the very beginning I was just making like I was really inspired by like the human body and human anatomy. So I was
Hmm.
really painting meats and like bones and organs and bodies,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. And I started to want to do murals. Like my thing was like, man, I want to do murals, and I started getting inspired by all these mural artists. And I was like, no one's gonna want to see bones and meat and like weird shit painted on walls. So I better like find a style. I better find a different style. Is literally what I thought.
Yeah.
And precious, sweet young Sabrina, I didn't even understand like that is just a terrible way to look at anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it absolutely. I went through that for a little bit because I my art has always been a little on the darker side, a little bit of the more like twisted side, like a lot of like human plant combinations, sort of like a mixture of like human and horticulture because I also garden in my spare time. Um, but every now and then I'm like, oh, I should paint like landscapes because people like landscapes more. But I'm like, no, I want to paint a flower woman doing random crap. Like,
I love that.
it's just so much more fun. Like, I love a good landscape piece, but like my true self is more fluidly creative and less, there's the object, paint the object.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't garden. I would love to have a garden, but I live like in the city. But I have tons of plants in my apartment. I've always had
Nice.
tons. I love plants. Like
They're great.
my my connection to nature is like a huge, it's not something I talk about all that often, but it's like embedded in my DNA. It's like something I need. I have to be surrounded by nature and plants. It's like who I am. I live in like city. I live in like almost the downtown portion of
Mm-hmm.
city. Not quite downtown, but it's, so that's literally like, it's just super urban.
Yeah.
And because of my current like work schedule, and I'm building a business on the side, and painting, this business is not even the business I'm talking about. Like
What have been some like really big defining factors in your art career?
so yeah, like I said, started painting seriously in 2020. And I don't know if you remember, but 2020 was the golden era of Instagram. Or at least one of them. It was the only
Yeah.
era. It's like where I started. So I only knew from then on. But it's back in the time where you could post a photo and like 10,000 people would see it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I was literally just posting my art on there, just making art and posting art and writing out these really beautiful captions about kind of like what I was going through. Because
Mm-hmm.
not only was I going through like COVID at that time, but I was also going through what I would call now a spiritual awakening, which is where I was really just like realizing that everything that I ever knew was kind of like a lie.
Yeah. I've
So
had that moment.
absolutely. And it was like the moment where I decided, like, shit, like, I want to own my own business. I want to paint, I want to create, and I want to get paid for it.
Yeah.
So I started to post all of my art on Instagram, started to get tons of followers, and I started to promote it, which kicked my following up into like, over the course of like 2 months, my follower count went from like 700 to like 30,000,
Wow.
which you can say what you want about Instagram not being important or not, like, it's just online, it doesn't matter. But for me at that moment, it felt like I went from being nobody to famous almost instantaneously. And, or at least that's how my body read it,
Yeah.
right? So it was weird because it put this like pressure on me to like produce more good shit. And
Yeah.
I didn't have a ton of trouble with that for a long time. I was like producing really cool artwork and started to sell artwork on and prints because of my engagement on Instagram, and because of the way Instagram was, I could post a photo of a print release, and
Mm-hmm.
then the print release would sell out. And so I started to make a really good income off of selling artwork on Instagram, through Instagram. And it was literally just Instagram too, like no TikTok, no nothing. So
Yeah.
diversify, people. Oh my god, that was so risky. What the fuck?
Yeah.
um so yeah, so I like really started to sell a good amount of artwork, and then I had a gallery hit me up to make some artwork for them. So I made artwork for them and then posted it to their gallery site, and things were just really freaking good for
Yeah.
like a while, and then I started to get these like intuitive whispers that like I needed to move to LA and do the thing that people do in LA, which is try
Yeah.
really kick off their art career and meet all the people. And so I went through like a brief period of time where I like moved back in with my family in the Bay Area for a little bit, kind of just in between, and then made a connection through a family member out in LA. And he paid for my Airbnb while I painted his art studio out there. And I was there. I was in LA, so I looked for a place to live
Yeah.
and had tons of savings, and tons of savings from the artwork and from the from bartending and stuff. So I was just like, let's fucking go, let's do this shit. And I made so many mistakes. I just made every mistake. I just made every mistake, and I did a terrible job. And like um but I did get to show my artwork in one of my favorite galleries in LA, which is Super Chief. Like my LA story is not super positive. I think that I'm the example My story is really the example of like when you go to follow your dreams and then you absolutely fucking crash and burn.
Mm.
Like I I went broke and I got a job at a coffee shop, destroyed my mental health, destroyed my physical health. Um, and then ended up leaving LA because I seriously couldn't stand it anymore. And looking back, I'm like, oh, like I know what mistakes I made and I know like what I could have done to avoid it. But I'm on the path that I'm on. And after I left LA, I think I stopped painting for a while because I stopped painting for like a year at least because I was just so mentally and emotionally fucked from the experience of kind of just having to give up on my dreams is what it felt like. It felt like I had completely failed, which that'll do stuff. That'll do stuff to
That'll
your
that'll do something to you, yeah.
it'll do something to you. So I had to basically rebuild myself from the ground up. I got a job. I got a jobby job. I got a 9 to 5 job, which I'm still working to this day. And have very like from the ground up had to rebuild myself and rebuild really who I am as a person. And for anybody for yourself, who's familiar with astrology, if Saturn returned, you clobbered me. Like,
A lot of revitalization going on too. Like a lot
oh yeah,
of energy coming back.
absolutely. I think that like one of the most beautiful things about life, this extends to every area of life, is that if you have to reach, if you go like and have a serious low, you're gonna come back up and have like incredible, beautiful highs. But what I learned from those experiences and like the mental and emotional resilience and strength that I built during those moments, I'll take that with me for the rest of my life, and I will never deal with like the terrible like heartbreak or mental health that I dealt with at that time because I know how to navigate those situations now. On top of that, like, the reason that I crashed and burned so hard in LA is because I like refused to get a real job because I was like, I'm an artist. I'm never gonna work a real job again. And I went broke and like could barely afford to eat. So, and like nobody knew that either. I wouldn't tell anybody about it. And if I had been more honest about it, maybe people would have either helped me or I would have been able to find a job or something like that. But I had too much of an ego. That's it. Actually, no more words. I had too much of an ego.
I will say I find like something, and usually with like a lot of young starving artists, there's that sort of pride of like, no, I can make it, I can build it on my own, and I'm gonna be super private about it, and no one needs to worry because this is my solo journey. And then you age a few more years and you're like, oh my god, I need help.
Since kind of making the transition to working on my other business and kind of just doing art more so for pleasure, I would say like my artistic practice is the it both feeds my life, it gives me like energy and inspiration to do the other things in my life. And then it's also kind of the excess and the runoff from the inspiration that I get other places in my life. Like I'll do, if I'm coaching clients or whatever, or working with plants, whatever I'm doing, the like I get that energy, I absorb energy and lessons throughout the day, and then I kind of convert it into artwork. Both positive and negative emotions are transmuted through my artwork. Uh, I was doing a series of paintings. I haven't finished it, and the series it ended up being actually 2 paintings, but it was about grief. Where it's like it was the only way that I could. I've never had a moment in my life where the only way that I could deal with those emotions and those feelings is to literally paint and transmute it in some way. So when I when I went through my breakup, I don't know if I mentioned that at any point
You
thus
had
far.
mentioned a at the time boyfriend, but there was not really like a
Exactly.
digging into that.
He and I broke up just this last year in the summertime. And it was really, really challenging for me because this is the person that I thought that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So during that period of time, It's like the only thing that I could do to like feel human during the day is to work on artworks. I created this one, which is kind of like thinking about how when you are feeling grief, you don't want anybody near you. You're really pokey. You
Yeah.
don't want people to touch you. You don't really want
Yeah.
people in your field. Even though like the greatest thing ever would just have to be like in a situation where you had somebody really understanding. That's like the ideal. But like a lot of the time, you can't explain grief to people, so nobody understands. You feel really alone and isolated. And then you know, I created this one as well. This one is not finished, but you can literally see the facial expression on this. It's like
No,
that's how I
yeah.
felt. Yeah. So it's really, I guess, art. Making art is just a place to transmute emotion.
It's a very like cathartic process, you could
Yeah.
say. Yeah. Where do you sort of see yourself going in the next like 10ish? Like how do you think you're going to sort of launch yourself? How do you think you're going to push yourself? What direction?
Yeah. So I feel I feel really grateful to be where I'm at right now because I've like done a lot of the inner work. So I don't really have to worry about I feel this like really amazing sense of calmness and peace in my life now. It's not that I don't have drive, it's more that I'm like okay and happy with where I'm at right now, which means that I can have a much more like sustainable growth instead of being upset that I'm not growing as fast or whatever. So, like, in terms of my artwork, I know that it's going to be a pretty part time until until my coaching business kicks off a little bit harder. So for the next probably year, maybe 2 years, it's going to be a lot of like painting smaller things, and just enjoying the artwork and the process. And I would say in the next like 5 to 10 years, I really want to go back to painting large pieces and painting murals again because that's really where my heart is. But it takes a lot of time. But I know that eventually I'm gonna have like a dual career in both arts and like health and wellness. So like spending like an equal amount of time doing both of those things. But I feel like they really feed into each other very well. So
Oh yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm really excited for myself and to see how that evolves. Yeah, it feels really good to actually be excited about making art again, as opposed to just like feeling like there were months at a time where it felt like every stroke of my brush I was criticizing and thinking like, oh, this isn't good enough. This is never going to sell. Like, no one's going to love this. And then posting reels and not getting views, or sometimes getting views and then like having that be like a huge dopamine kick. And
Yeah.
just this like constant chasing, and it's just like I don't feel like I have that anymore, and
Chasing
that's
the
just
dragon, yeah.
no, I don't feel like I have that anymore. It's like the
Yeah.
most freedom ever. I really feel like I just like couldn't handle that for a long time. I couldn't handle that like that chase and that like needing validation, you know,
Like an
because
almost like an artificial outside importance put on your stuff and like you're not looking at why it's important to you at that point.
absolutely. Yeah. So my art page is Pevchmilk, Pevchmilk on Instagram. I just reopened my shop selling little originals right now. Yeah, like this guy here. This guy, I love this guy. Oh my God. Testament to like painting things that I really love. And then these like little panels, which I'll be doing a lot more of and putting them up on my site as well. So I have that. And then I also run a coaching business basically where I help women develop more confidence, clarity, and creativity through health, wellness, fitness, nutrition. It's kind of like a whole overall like spectrum of things. But yeah, that's what I do. And then that page, if you want to check out my coaching or fitness nutrition stuff, that's Young Knees. So that's YUNG_. Knees, and knees has a Z. So
I
yeah,
love it personally.
I it's so good. I can't like that's the artist in me. Like it's so funny because when I when I started that business, I was like, I can't call it Young Me's. This is so unprofessional. But the artist in me refuses to have a normal name for anything.
Be authentic. Go
Yeah,
with what your mind says.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you. Um, I assume you're gonna edit a little bit of this, right?
Oh, yeah, don't worry.